Rio is a techie who fights the battles in his self-designed Uplink. The valves need oil?
These roads intersect, on each one I reflect. These lines write my story.
Welcome everyone. I am One True Brick, bringing you another LEGO Exo-Force review. Today I'll be looking at two different sets actually. Set number 7708, Uplink, and set number 7711, the Sentry. So these two sets have a lot in common, and as a result I decided to put them together to kind of talk about both of them at once. They have very similar build designs in the way that they articulate, and some of the pros and cons are the same. Uplink has 69 pieces. It was released in 2006 for $5. This is a really good value, especially considering how many pieces you get for such a small set. I can't even remember the last time LEGO had a set that was $5 that had a minifigure included in the box. It was at least like 4 or 5 years ago, if not longer. Sentry also has some of the same pros. It was released in 2006 for $5 and had 78 pieces, so once again, you're getting a really good bang for your buck if you are getting it for that price. However, nowadays you should expect to spend anywhere from $10 to $12 if you are buying a used version of the set on Bricklink or eBay. So getting into the build, as you can see, both sets have a very similar base design with the legs. They have the same amount of articulation and the same posability. However, they each differentiate in the way that they're structured. Once again, the Uplink set kind of has that same anime style feel with the big shoulder pieces, the sloped curvy legs, and then the robot battle machine, the Sentry, kind of has that same industrial feel that the Fire Vulture and the Thunder Fury had. One thing in particular that I really like about both of these models is the way that they designed the weapons. Now, in a set this small, you could have kind of expected them to have really simplistic weapon design, but they actually went into it and made a pretty good job of using the parts that they had. So you can see both of them have rocket launchers on each arm, opposite sides from each other, and then each of them have an arm cannon that actually has some posability, just like that. So once again, I want to draw attention to the fact that even though these sets were only $5, they still had a very large amount of posability. Maybe not quite as much as some of their $15 or $20 counterparts, but you could still get a fair number of poses out of them. You could rotate the arms all the way around, kind of have some dynamic poses. And the legs in particular have this double ratcheted joint in the hip here. I guess you could say this is the hip, and this is the knee, and this is the ankle. You still get those 3 points of articulation in the leg, allowing you to have some poses kind of like that. So you could have a battle machine like looking like it's running, and it still holds itself up pretty well. You get that nice range of motion that you normally wouldn't get nowadays in a set of this size. Even $10 and $12 sets don't necessarily have this amount of articulation, so that's a really nice thing to see. Of course, as with all Exo-Force sets, you end up having these sticker pieces. Now, in particular, I wanted to note this set right here, because they actually have stickers that cover up a pinhole. And I'm not really a huge fan of that particular aspect. I don't think stickers should cover a usable pinhole because it kind of takes away from mocking potential. So you're either not able to use that piece to the fullest, or you have to puncture the original sticker in order to use that hole. I don't think it would have been that crazy for them to have it already have a hole in the middle, and then you don't risk damaging your set in order to create mocks. So I'd say that's a bit of a con. The Sentry doesn't have anything on that. It does still have stickers, so you run the risk of wear and tear over time, but both of these sets have actually held up pretty well in terms of the stickers staying on. They're also quite easy to place in comparison to some of the larger models. They only have probably about 5 to 10 stickers each. One thing that is an aspect of most of the smaller set designs and this was especially frustrating for Exo-Force, were these antenna pieces. Now, because this is so much later down the line since these sets came out, I actually had to replace some parts for these sets before doing the reviews, and the most common piece I had to replace was this antenna. I think I had to replace probably close to a dozen of them across all of my sets, because it is literally as easy as bump and it's off, and you end up losing it, whether it be through play or storage. These are super easy to lose, and I really wish LEGO would have incorporated a design that kind of keeps it on better. You could have like a little studded piece with a clip to hold on to it to give it 2 points of contact, kind of down here by the base. I'm going to be showing on screen, there's a picture of a LEGO Star Wars AT-RT that kind of has that design that holds it together using a Technic lift arm and a stud with a clip, and any of those designs probably could have been used to keep these pieces from falling off. Unfortunately, LEGO didn't incorporate them, and I'd say that's a bit of a bother. So some of the other parts that have a tendency to fall off are these levers right here and here. Unfortunately, because of the size of the design, you can't really avoid that, and I think they did a decent job making these models stable aside from those antenna. Overall, these sets have a lot in common and are very well built for small models, and I really think that in comparison to a lot of newer sets nowadays, the use of parts was really good for these sets. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the minifigures. Once again, keep in mind these are two separate sets, so you will only be getting one when you purchase, and you will only be getting one of these minifigures. So we're going to take a look at the human pilot first. This character's name is Rio, and he was kind of a tech head, a little bit of a nerd in terms of the way that he liked to do things. His battle machine was kind of meant to be used as a repair robot rather than for fighting. And as you can see, the hairpiece can be removed. You can turn around the head and have those dynamic extra poses. He kind of has this red headband thing going on, adding red to his color scheme, and also it includes some red on his battle machine. So I kind of like how the three colors blend together. Normally the purple and the orange wouldn't go as well together, but with the red in between, it being primary color used in creating both of those colors, it allows for the color scheme to work a little bit better. Once again, you have that single print on just the front of the character. So it says across the front, if I can get it to focus, AT-01, which is the division that Rio is a part of. And then you get a purple hair mold piece. Something I wanted to mention was that Hikaru is currently the only main character of the four that has a different hair piece. So Rio, Takeshi, and another character, Hayato, actually have the same hair mold, and for some reason Hikaru is the only one that got a different one. There's also another character later on that you will see that got that same mold, but he's not one of the main characters. So this Iron Drone, as they're called, is kind of like the more grunt style unit of the robots. Devastators are more used for piloting larger battle machines. These guys are the smaller ones that tend to pilot the smaller battle machines. They're not as intelligent and more used for fodder. So this one has a red axle in the back to kind of give that eye look. He has the same articulation in the arms, hands, and legs. Keep in mind, if you are planning on building something for it, that the legs don't bend all the way. There's no studs in the back, so you'll have to get kind of creative when attaching it to things. I'm going to go ahead and stick him back in there. Of course, one of the greatest appeals of the Exo-Force sets was their alternative combo models, and I'm going to quick grab the instruction manuals. They were conveniently placed on the back of each of their manuals. So right there you can see you can build this alternative model with Uplink and this alternative model with Sentry. So that adds a little bit of extra playability in the box, whereas these sets would normally just take like maybe 10 minutes to build. You get that extra ability to build something else. And I think that's really nice. So now that we are done with the review, one of the things I like to do when looking at these sets is to consider the story aspects of each of these models. So I'm going to start by looking over Uplink's storyline. So Rio actually self-modified Uplink. Originally, Uplink was a repair robot designed specifically only for repairing other larger battle machines, but Rio didn't want to stay out of the action, and so he modified Uplink with weapons and special technology, allowing him to be able to fight in battle. Now, even though it's a small battle machine, it still has quite amount of capability of fighting off robots. Once again, it was primarily used for repair, not combat. And then one of the most major aspects of this was Rio had a very strong connection to his battle machine, unlike others where Hikaru and Takeshi and Hayato would usually upgrade their battle machines and switch which battle machines they were using throughout the course of their fight with the robots. As soon as they had an opportunity to upgrade, they did. Rio kind of had a hard time letting go of Uplink, and in fact, until it was completely destroyed, he didn't stop using it. There was a major moment in the storyline where Uplink was actually captured by the robots without Rio being inside, and so Rio actually developed an entire other battle machine called the Mobile Defense Tank in order to go rescue Uplink, if that gives you any idea of how attached to this battle machine he was. So, moving on to the Sentry. It was mass-produced by the robots. It was the most mass-produced battle machine. Usually we'd see them in sets of 6 or even a dozen in a battle. You could have as many as 30 or 40 in one single fight because they were so quick and easy to produce. It was used in bulk combat, often led by a Thunder Fury or another large robot battle machine, so you'd rarely see just a Sentry or just several Sentries in a fight. Normally you would have something leading them because of the nature of the Iron Drones not being as intelligent as Devastators or Mecha One. And there were several different variants of the Sentry. So this is the primary one you would see with rockets on one arm and a blaster on the other. But there are several other variants seen, most notably the Sentry 2, which is included in another set. But the comics also showed some models that included 2 blaster arms, 2 rocket arms, or any number of combinations of different style of weapons depending on what type of mission they needed to use it for. So it's interesting to note that the Sentry was diverse in its ability to fight in combat. So with that, I thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a thumbs up down below. If you have any questions or are curious about the story pertaining to these sets, you can take a look at the wiki, which will be linked down below. And next week, I will be taking a look at the Sonic Phantom. Thanks. Bye. There's a handle back here that you can grab onto to kind of swoop it around, and if you look closely enough, underneath there is a trigger piece.